Welcome to another edition of Papa's Perspective, part of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New York Giants. So the Giants are playing at the Raiders, and it's not like there's a great history between the Giants and Raiders, but there was one game that jumped out to me, and I said, we have to have Tiki on. We have to have Tiki Barber on. Tiki, welcome to the show. And December 31st, 2005, you had a game for the ages. You guys were battling Washington for the division title. They were playing Philadelphia the next day on January the 1st. So you need to win this game to wrap up the NFC East, the whole thing. But there's more to the story than the game. This was a very emotional season. On October 25th, Wellington Mara passed away. And then Bob Tisch passed away on November the 15th. And you were, one of the big leaders of that ball club. Talk about the dynamic of what that whole experience was like.
Well, Bob, it's great to be on. Good to see you again. It's been a while since in person, but I know we're from afar that this is just as good because I love talking about these memories, especially from that 2005 season. Now, you'll remember, Bob, Coach Coughlin, from the very beginning of training camp, stated that season was the team of record for Bob and Wellington. I don't think a lot of guys knew what that meant or thought deeply about what that meant. But you're right. I had a close relationship with Wellington. I had a great relationship with Bob because I lived on the Upper East Side, and he would always come pick me up, and we'd go to events together, and political or social. And I developed a great reverence for who he was and what he meant to the city, but also for the team. And I guess we kind of all knew that they would both maybe pass away that season. And that meant something to me. And I had some of my best games that year, including the Washington game right after Wellington passed away, where I went over 200 yards and took myself out of the game in the third quarter after I'd scored a touchdown. And I gave that TD ball to Tim McDonald, one of his grandsons, who's now in the front office with the Giants, and he still has it. And I remember saying, Timmy, this is all I could do to celebrate Wellington, was to have the day that I had against Washington. And I gave him that football and took myself out of the game. The Oakland game was an interesting one because there was a lot at stake. We were still fighting for the playoffs, and Ron Stone, Stoney, was on that team. And I love Stoney. We used to hang out all the time. And I remember after the game, he came up to me and said, dude, when you were running down the sideline, I wanted to come off the bench and just tackle you. I wanted to crush you. You were killing us. But I always used that play. It was a 95-yard touchdown. And it's the one you're referring to, as an example of teamwork and what it means to understand everybody and one another as a team. So Luke Pettigrew jumps offside. We're on the 10. Now we're on the 5. And as a running back, we always think the same thing. It's like, dude, I can go the distance, right? And I'm not going to match Tony Dorsett, which is subsequently been matched by Derrick Henry, but I'm not going to match Tony Dorsett, but I can get 95 yards. Like, you think that when you're backed up, because everybody knows what play you're going to run. It's going to be a power play to the strong side. Just get 3 yards and give yourself some punting room. That's generally the mindset. But as we walked up to the line of scrimmage on that play, the Raiders knew what was coming. They were screaming it, power, 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 pointing to their left, which is our right, because the tight end was lined up that side, fullback was pressed that side. They're going power, power. So they start cheating over, right? They start cheating just a little bit to their left. But the problem is the backside Will linebacker was already on the line of scrimmage. If he would have been, 3 stacked, they would have been fine. But because they had called a defense that put the backside linebacker on the line of scrimmage, he effectively was out of the play. And then when they started cheating, it created this massive hole on the backside. And so in my mind, I'm trying not to look at it. I'm walking up to the line of scrimmage. I see the Will on the backside of the line of scrimmage. I'm like, dude, there is a massive hole over there. And I don't want to look at it because I don't want them to get wary of it because they're cheating. They're all like power, power. They're all cheating down towards the play side. And my eye is on Sean O'Hara. All I'm looking at is O'Hara. And I'm saying, all right, I know the guard's pulling, backside guard is pulling. I know that if O'Hara cuts off that D tackle, I think it was a 3 technique. If he cuts off that 3 technique, my foot's going in the ground, going backside. That's all I was looking at. Play starts. I'm heading downhill on the right path, not giving it away. Finney's leading front side, pulling guard comes around, and O'Hara cuts that guy off. And as soon as I saw him make contact, I stick my foot in the ground and go behind him. And now I'm in space because they've all cheated over. And so I'm behind all of them. They're running play side, I'm backside, and I'm standing in the middle of the field, and the safety's coming down. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm 29, I'm 30 at this point. I'm like, can I make this guy miss? Because if I do, I got something special here. So I just kind of gave him this slow fake. It was one of the slowest fakes I've ever done in my life. Like left, right, left. He misses, and I run through an arm tackle, and all of a sudden I'm in the open field. Plexico comes down and squashes the cornerback, and I'm like, all right, I got the sideline. But I don't have like that 4.4 speed that I had coming out of college. And so I'm just running. I'm like, all right, let me get what I can get. Then all of a sudden, I see Plexico come out of the side of my eye. I'm like, dude, he just made a block on the corner. What the hell is he doing back here already? He had turned around and was escorting me. And then there's another safety coming on the side. Here comes Amani from the other side of the field. They cut off the other safety, and I basically had an escort down the left sideline for a 95-yard touchdown. But I use that play as an example of teamwork, right? Of understanding that you can do your job, but when you do your job exceptionally, like Amani did, like Plexico did, like Sean O'Hara did, that big things happen. Now people will look at me and say, "Oh, 95-yard touchdown," but that wasn't on me, man. I was just running to the open field. I was running to space, and that's what that's what I love most about those last couple of years with the Giants, in particular that 2005 season, because we knew each other so well as an offense and as an offensive line and as a running game. I ran for 200 yards 3 times that season. That wasn't by accident.
Plexico had a big game. He had a long touchdown catch. But with the game still hanging in the balance, because the final score was 30-21.
Yeah, that was that was our first score. Right? That was early in the game.
With the game hanging in the balance, right? I think right at the 2-minute mark, you guys had a 3rd and 8, and they fed you the rock, and you got 9 yards, and then that basically sealed the deal. But I guess that kind of speaks to your overall point of team, right?
Yes.
I mean, they trusted the run game with the game on the line, and you need 11 guys to execute it.
Yeah, we did, and we were so confident. We were so assured of our run game that season, really those last couple of seasons that I was there. It was continuity. There was familiarity. We could mess up and still get it right, and because of how well we knew each other. And I think that was something that it's gotten lost in today's NFL, right? This idea of a run game being able to dominate. Not because you have a big player who can take all the the poundings, but because you understand defenses and you understand each other. And you're right, in that closing moments, we knew that we didn't need to throw the ball. We knew that we could get whatever we needed just by Eli turning around and handing it off, and we got a very important win on near the end of the season. It was awesome.
Yeah, so you guys clinched the division. Excuse me, 11-5. Now, for those, obviously, the Giants are going to be playing the Raiders this week in a spanking new stadium in Las Vegas. The Raiders used to play in a place called Oakland, the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, which was as bad a stadium as you could possibly get.
No doubt.
The A's still play there. And I remember after the game having to hustle down to do the interview with the coach and all that other stuff. But, there's crates in the hallway. The hallway's narrow. You're going so through a dugout. It's like it's epically bad.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, or reminisce with us, please. Coughlin's speech afterwards, because I'm standing outside the locker room and everything is so cramped. It's not like they could close the doors, so that we couldn't hear, but the emotion with the Mara family, the Tisch family, and Coughlin's messaging to you guys as you clinched the division and the way you did it in that environment was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, me too, Bob. It's hard not to get emotional about it because very rarely are things storybook like that. And, you know, unfortunately for us, that season ended very poorly. In the postseason, Carolina came to our house and beat us. And what we thought was a storybook ended it was just an ugly finish. But in that moment, when we clinched the division, we know we were going to the playoffs, and the legacy of Wellington and Bob Tisch kind of was forefront. And, you know, Tom had a way of speaking very matter-of-factly, but if you were listening to what he was saying, you could feel his emotion. Like, he's never one of those, he was never going to cry, right? He never was going to get overwhelmed by the moment. It wasn't in his demeanor. His facade was solid, and it was always going to be that way. But you could hear it if you were listening, the importance at that moment, winning the division in Oakland, had for him, and how he was transferring that to the Mara family, to the Tisch family. I took it as as one of the greatest moments in our Giant history, because of what it meant to the families. You know, forget what happened downstream, but in that moment, we had accomplished something that we had set out to do. At the beginning of the season, as I mentioned, Tom Coughlin said, "We are the team of record for Wellington Mara and Bob Tisch," and we fulfilled that by winning the division. So it's my most memorable season. Those were some of my most memorable games, and it'll always be special.
Tiki, that's pretty awesome stuff. I want to ask you one football question in wrapping up, because about you, and I know that you know, sometimes it could be a little bit awkward talking about yourself, but when you take a look at running backs, great running backs, and you look at the last 5 years of their career as they played into their 30s, arguably no one had a better 5 years at the end of their career at a position that normally it's over.
Yeah.
By the time we're talking about it, what was the motivation for you and the inspiration for you to be able to be as good as you were in those last 5 years, which are still epic numbers?
Yeah.
You can compare them to anybody's numbers, Hall of Famers, anybody. No one's had 5 years like you did at the end of the career for a running back.
Well, I think it's two things, Bob. The first is that early on in my career, those first 4 or 5 years, I didn't do a whole lot. And I was a kick returner. I was a third down specialist. I know I started as a rookie, but then I got hurt. I tore my PCL, and then I was constantly trying to be replaced. I believe Ernie, of course, he was looking for whether it was Sean Bennett or Joe Montgomery, or we brought in the late Gary Brown. They were always trying to replace me. And then we drafted Ron Dane in 2000. So those first 3 or 4 years, I mean, I didn't do much. I don't think I had 1,000 yards collectively, much less in a season, until 2000. And so I've always believed that it's a function of carries. And by that, I mean a function of hits, like how much pounding your body can take. And that's proportional to your size or your musculature or your joint structure, etc. I didn't have wear and tear early on in my career. And so when I finally figured it out, meaning football wise, X's and O's, and it married with me getting in great shape, I started working out with Joe Carini, who was a strength and conditioning coach, world's strongest man type lifter. I got really powerful, up to about 212 pounds of muscle. And I was durable, and I never missed games. And even if I did have a broken bone, let's tape it up and let's go. And so there was a mentality that came with the toughness that I had built on my body. And so that intersection of understanding the game and physical maturity hit at the right time for me. And I was able to excel as my years went on, mainly because I didn't have a lot of wear and tear. But I think the other thing was it was the right coaching staff for me. Now, a lot of people, you know, hated Tom Coughlin's ways because he was so particular. Like, be there 5 minutes early. It's meetings at 7:30, but if you're not there at 7:25, you're late. But it was those details and understanding the little things, including with my fumbling issue that I was able to correct with Gerald Ingram. It was those like little details that made the biggest difference in my career, because I could see it. Like I could get up to the line of scrimmage and I could see what was going to happen or was supposed to happen, so that I was prepared for it. So I think the details combined with the physicality of my physical development, as well as the lack of wear and tear, allowed me to excel all the way up until the end. I mean, it was, I tell people this story. When I knew I was going to retire in 2006, we played the Eagles. We were down in Philly. And Jeremiah Trotter just beat the crap out of me. And I couldn't walk for like 3 days, at least not comfortably. And I remember telling Jim Finn, I was like, Finney, I'm done. And he's looking at me like, what are you talking about? We got like 12 games to go. What are you talking about? And I said, Finney, I'm going to have a great season, but I can't do this anymore. And I did. And it got a little controversial, just because my retirement leaked. But I was ready to go on to the next thing, but I also realized that I had a responsibility, a duty, to be great at what my task was. And I had always told Coach Coughlin, you know what you're going to get from me on Sunday. It doesn't matter what the week looks like. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. You know you can count on me on Sundays. And my teammates knew that. And I took a lot of pride in that.
Well, 2005 was an epic season. First team All-Pro, Pro Bowl, December 31st, 2005, beating the Raiders in Oakland, and obviously the team of record with the passing of both Mr. Mara and Mr. Tisch within the span of a month. And Tiki, you were such a key component in all of that with leadership and obviously play on the field. And I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for taking us down memory lane to, I know, one of the most important games or meaningful and memorable games in your illustrious career. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you having me. Let's go, Giants.
Yeah, that's Tiki Barber joining us on this edition of the Papa's Perspective, part of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New York Giants.